have all logged off. I was listening on the Twitch bit.
There you go. I'm in.
Okay, but I mean, you're the pilot from what I saw, so it's more important that you actually know because you can tell your crewmates, right?
Alright, cool.
Okay, so let's get started. First of all,
Mm-hmm.
do you know about the difference between a ship's hull and a ship's armor? What I asked on Twitch.
Because I've played this briefly a long time ago and we've just started again. Probably not, because I take it there's different points where you hit the armor, different points where you hit the hull.
Yeah, all right. So let's take it from the bottom, shall we? Basically, ships generally have like 2 health bars.
Oh yeah, because you destroy the armor, then you hit the hull.
They've got the armor.
Yeah.
Yes, and once the armor is stripped, you hit the hull. Hull damage is permanent. It's what happens when you get the red hit markers.
Yeah.
And armor damage can be repaired. So white hit markers are armor hits or anything else for that matter. It could be a weapon, module, engine, balloon, doesn't matter. Yeah, but generally armor first, then hull. Now you've got several different damage types, and every single damage type is good against something. It's very rock, paper, scissors to a very high degree. So, piercing damage is very, very good against armor, but completely sucks against hull. On the other hand, explosive damage, most of the really impressive weapons have explosive damage. They are absolutely useless against armor, but rip hull apart like no one's business. So ideally, you want to have a 1-2 punch. And the goldfish you're flying is actually the worst solo ship in the game because it has no weapon configuration that lets you turn 2 different weapons on one target.
Yeah, it's very one or the other.
It's either one or the other, exactly. And there is no weapon in Guns of Icarus that can kill on its own.
Right.
There literally is none. With 2 bare exceptions, they just make the cut. I will explain that later. So
what
with that in mind,
to use as a starting ship?
As a starter ship, literally anything except the goldfish. I mean, the goldfish is not bad, but the goldfish is really bad at killing on its own. The goldfish is a good team ship, and it is very, very tanky, so it is easy to fly. But if you want to kill on your own, basically what you need to do with that setup you're going for at the moment, it's solid for goldfish. So let's have a look at the weapons themselves. So if I click on your name, on your ship name, I can see your complete loadout. You can do the same with all your enemies, and that is one very, very important habit to get into.
I think
like, look at your enemy's ships.
Change it until you obviously the loadouts, can you, until you're not a novice?
Yeah, that happens when you hit rank 8 or 9 with any of your specializations. So when you're like Gunner 1, Engineer 1, but you hit Pilot 8 or 9, then you're automatically not considered a novice anymore.
Alright.
But you can also you can join games that are not novice, and then you can modify your ship like you want.
Right.
So, looking at your goldfish at the moment, are you actually changed the carronade to double gapling?
I did, but because we've only been playing novice games, obviously it doesn't appear like that when you get into the game.
Yeah. Do you mind switching that back to the carronade just for me explaining that and save it?
One of the other members.
All right. So. Yeah, I can see it now. It's perfectly fine. So, if you mouse over a weapon, you see they have 2 different damage bars. With some weapons, they have the same kind of damage. Technically, how detailed should I explain this? Should I go into very deep details, or should I just go roughly over it?
Well, I mean, Sakiel's just jumped on. Sakiel, so to say, not Sakiel. He's one kind of our main gunner at the moment. So I take it we need to
Oh, okay.
start concentrating on what guns should be fired at what part.
Yeah, so let's talk about damage types first, yeah? If you mouse over the rockets in the front, the Watcher, it deals explosive and shatter damage. So, if you remember what I told you earlier, explosive is really good against hull, but it sucks against armor. Um,
So that's quite
the
good to try and
Gatling,
finish something off, but to get for the armor first.
yes. Basically, yes. If you see red hit markers, then you can almost insta-kill with a full salvo from the rockets. They are that strong, that's why they reload so long. But as long as the enemy still has armor, you won't really scratch them, because due to the long reload time, you will probably break their armor, but you won't deal any hull damage. And during that long ass reload, they will have their armor completely fixed. So if you only use your front rockets, even if they look really, really impressive, you will never kill someone.
Right.
So, yeah, so your left side gun, the Gatling, has piercing damage.
Yeah.
And I mean, doesn't do that much damage, but it has a really insane rate of fire. And the Gatling is actually bar none the best armor breaking weapon in the game.
I did
So,
notice when we were towards the end of the game where we started using the Gatling gun, then turned to the front, the Gatling gun would start eventually getting red markers, and then when you turned, you'd hit with the
yes,
salvo.
exactly. And that is exactly that one single way how you probably kill with a goldfish. There's no other really decent way to kill with a goldfish. Except for getting creative. But that's exactly how you kill. So, the right side weapon, the carronade, the shotgun type weapon, it deals neither explosive nor piercing damage. It deals flechette and shatter damage. These two are a little bit special. Flechette is only against balloon, and shatter damage is good against components. Components are things like guns or engines, things like that, right?
Right.
So the shotgun is basically an anti-balloon. It's a balloon popper. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
right.
a control weapon. It doesn't deal that much or almost negligible damage to the armor and the hull. I mean, it does damage. It's just really bad at it. But if you hit a balloon with a carronade, 6-7 shots should be enough to pop any balloon in the game. Yeah, so if you want to force your enemy into the ground, or if they are harassing you and are on your ass, pop their balloon and they will have trouble. So
Giving
that's
you
a
time
good.
to either get away
That's
or
a good.
maneuver better.
Yes, exactly. And all of these have shatter damage, so they are reasonably good at breaking weapons and stuff. Which brings me again to the Manticore Heavy Watcher. And now let me tell you about the two different damage bars. If you look at the Heavy Watcher, the first bar, the upper bar, is explosive, and the lower bar is shatter. The first bar is actually on direct hit, and the lower bar is on the AoE damage, the area effect. Now, some weapons like the Gatling gun, they don't really have area of effect. They just so the shatter damage applies to the direct hit, but the Watcher has huge explosions with lots and lots of shatter damage. And it's usually enough with one single salvo that you keep breaking all of your enemy's weapons. So even if you can't get any red markers, and even if you can't finish your enemy off, the Heavy Watcher is really good at disabling people.
Right, so in a fight, instead of having the Watcher trying to shoot the actual hull, you should be shooting sort of like the guns until we get the Gatling gun to use to get the armor down, and then you can use the Watcher to finish off the actual ship itself.
Yeah, you can basically disable the enemy, swing around, get the Gatling to bear, break the armor, swing around again. By then, the Watcher should be reloaded and finish them off. That's exactly how you fly Goldfish. Or if you need an enemy to, like, if an enemy is busy killing your teammate, you can pretty much get them off your teammate's ass by putting a full Watcher into them.
Yeah. So right. So they're very.
Yeah.
You're right. Instead of being kind of, they all can do a little bit of everything. They're very situational. If you don't have the right gun for the right thing, it's pretty much pointless.
Yeah, exactly. And this is exactly the reason why the Goldfish is a very mixed bag. You're very, very bad solo, but if you have a teammate who can, for example, if you have two Goldfish, yeah, one can keep his Gatling on the enemy, and the other one just waits for the armor to break and just pumps a full salvo of Watcher into the enemy. You will be dead. But if you do that on your own, there's a lot of maneuvering and a lot of timing issues, and oftentimes it will not really work that nicely. But it's a really good team ship.
Yeah. Just because we've got back into it, so I've got the Goldfish, the Junker, and the Pyramidon.
Yeah, Pyramidion.
Yes.
Pyramidion is very easy to fly. It has two front cannons, and don't make the mistake of thinking that large weapon mounts are better than small weapon mounts. The problem with large weapon mounts is there is no large weapon mount at the moment with reasonable piercing damage. This is one of the problems the Galleon has.
Hull breaker sort of thing.
Exactly, the armor breaker. Yeah, tons and tons of explosive damage like the Watcher or the Typhoon Heavy Flak, but you will never really break armor all that well. Now, if you look at the Galleon, have you seen a Galleon before?
I mean, I've seen all the ships, but I've never actually been in battle with one or on one.
Yeah, I just switched into a Galleon, so you can click on my ship name. Yeah, take a look at it. Yeah, and it looks really, really impressive, doesn't it? It looks really big, intimidating. It's got 4 heavy weapon mounts, 2 on each side, but it's got massive glaring weaknesses due to these heavy weapons. First of all, they're really exposed on the side, so they can be easily taken out. Think shatter damage. And then, do you see the number 5 and the number 6 weapon slot? One on the back and one on the left side. Nothing on the front, nothing on the right side.
So it's very, very broadsided.
So, exactly. From number 1 to number 4, I have almost all the proper heavy weapons. There's just a 5th one, which is basically a massive carronade. Again, for popping balloons, but the heavy carronade actually deals enough damage to kill ships up close, but it turns not that well. So if you look at these things, almost all of them have tons and tons of flechette, shatter, explosive shatter. The only odd one out is the Minotaur heavy cannon.
Which has got your piercing.
But yeah, but that thing is that is not a weapon. That is more of an inconvenience. It looks like it has piercing, but it's actually used for pushing people around. It's like an air cannon.
Oh god.
Yeah, so you won't break armor with this. So, the Galleon, like remember what I said, you are forced to use the number 5 or the number, no, you can't use number 6 because you don't have any heavy weapons on your rear. So you need to break armor with a number 5 weapon slot. Yeah, which limits you to very few light weapons you can use on this. And then sometimes you see people putting something like extra explosive damage in the number 5 slot. These Galleons are really easy to kill.
Because they're going to struggle
they
with
can,
armor.
Yeah, they can piss you off. They can disable you a lot. What you see very often is you have 2 Watchers in the lower decks, or like 4 Watchers. And what the gunner does, you only need one single gunner, because the gunner hops into one Watcher, fires that, gets off, gets on the second gun, fires that, runs back to the first, and repeats. Yeah, so you have basically twice the Watcher fire rate. And these things won't break armor, but it will constantly disable everything. So they are very annoying, but as big as they are, they can be killed very easily.
So I suppose a galleon sounds like it can be very good if you've got another ship concentrating on armor piercing, and use this to finish it off, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. But then again, why use two ships that fulfill one role when you can fly a ship that can kill on its own extremely reliably?
True.
Yeah, that's the thing. So, um, it's all relatively simple once you understand what's really going on behind it. It's really just rock, paper, scissors on a Zeppelin scale.
Yeah, so you basically look at what you need to do. If it's got armor on, concentrate on using the weapon that will solve that problem, but then change to the next weapon that needs to solve the next problem, rather than just randomly firing all the weapons at the actual ship.
Yeah. So basically, you can think of it. You have weapons in three different categories. You have, I say three different categories. You have armor breakers. You have destroyers like hull breakers, explosive, and then you have control weapons. Yeah, which is flamer, for example, carronades, these kind of things.
Right, so what's a good all-round ship then for us to use eventually when we get past novice?
Every ship is viable, and absolutely every ship is viable. The thing is, as a novice, you don't get any access, or as a later high-level guy, you don't get access to any equipment that you don't have as a novice. You have exactly the same items, same ships, even though you can then equip them freely. But just stick with what you like. I've seen very high-level players be very, very effective with goldfish, squids, literally everything. Yeah, it depends largely on what your enemy is flying, and I can't stress this enough. If you are in a lobby, don't just sit there and wait for the timer to count down. Actually look at the enemy ships, and you can even look at the equipment the other people have. If you click on the small head icon that's on the right side of my name.
Oh yeah, actually brings up your character.
Yeah, you can even see what kind of stuff I have equipped. Yeah, so you usually don't have to look at each character, but one thing that I like to do is I click on the name of a guy. You can just simply click on my name, left click, and you see all my levels. So I look at the captains, I look at the pilots. I see if it's a pilot, if he's like below level 10, below level 20, or if he's a max rank level 45er, and then you know roughly what to expect. Is this a dangerous ship or not?
Yeah.
Then I look at the ship, what kind of weapons they have. If they have flamethrowers, I tell my engineers to bring chemical spray, and the gunners should have heatsink ammunition. If I see that the enemy has carronades or heavy lumberjacks with flechette damage for popping balloons, then I make sure as a pilot I bring the parachute item, so that I don't fall to my death quite as fast. So countering your enemy is like 3 steps closer to victory. It's the most important thing you can do. So now we can go a little bit over ammunition types for weapons. That would be probably very interesting for your gunner.
Alright, cool.
Looking at the, just open your character and click on the gunnery equipment. You will see all the different ammo choices you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, going from the first one, you have Lochnagar. in my I have Lochnager in the first slot. That is a very special ammunition. You don't really use that unless you have heavy weapons with arming time. Now, arming time is something like minimal range. There are some weapons that within a certain range, within a certain flight time, like if an enemy is within 1 second of projectile flight time, it does not trigger the second damage bar, only the first one. This is, for example, this is the case with the light flak and the heavy flak. And you will notice when you shoot that, you will get a bigger explosion, and you will get sometimes even 2 hit markers with 1 hit. And if you get too close, you notice that this explosion isn't happening. And then you know, okay, I'm within minimum range, I'm not dealing all the damage that I could normally do. So, what Lochnagar does in that case is it almost completely eliminates this arming time. And you can fire many weapons that are supposed long-range weapons at point blank, which can be a very nasty surprise for some enemies. But in doing that, you actually break your own weapon. So this is a last-ditch thing. But it can be very powerful in the right hands. So very special ammunition. I don't suggest you use that until you actually try it out. You usually want to use it on heavy weapons. Yeah, obviously with something like the Watcher, that would be very, very silly, because you only get 1 single shot, not the full salvo. Okay, now heavy clip. Heavy clip is going to be very, very important for your gunner if you stick to the Goldfish with Watcher. What the heavy clip does is it reduces spread on a weapon. And with a Watcher, that means that you can now fire the rocket salvo accurately at long distance. It doesn't spray all over the place. It is one single stream of rockets. Yeah, this also applies to several different other weapons, like the carronade. The carronade doesn't act like a shotgun, but something more like an elephant rifle. Yeah, so you can accurately put single shots into the enemy, which is interesting. Also for the Gatling, it lets you surgically destroy enemy weapons, for example. So heavy clip definitely has its place in for many different weapons. Depends what your gunner is using. So incendiary rounds. Basically, incendiary rounds are very, very bad. Less range, less damage, less rate of fire, lower clip size. They're all around horrible, but every single projectile that hits gives you a 20% chance to inflict a single fire stack. So that has some uses, namely in rapid firing weapons, for example the Gatling, or in stuff like the carronade. The carronade is a special one because the carronade fires like 16 pellets, and every single one of these small pellets from the shotgun spray gets the 20% chance to ignite. So you have 16 times 20% chance for fire.
Right.
Yeah. Important here with the incendiary rounds is that you know the minus 30% to projectile speed, because that actually dictates range. Yeah. The maximum range of the projectile is determined by flight time. So a bullet lives for, let's say, 5 seconds. And how fast it travels in that 5 seconds is your range. So if you have reduced projectile speed, you also have reduced range. Makes sense, I hope?
Yeah.
Okay. So next one, burst rounds. These are pretty good all-rounders. It doesn't mean that suddenly, for example, your Gatling bullets magically explode. If something doesn't have AoE radius, like the Gatling, it does not get any benefit from this, apart from getting 20% larger clip size, but minus 15% rate of fire. So for stuff like the Gatling, completely useless. On things like the Watcher that have big explosions, this is absolutely brilliant because it increases the size of the secondary explosions so much that a full Watcher salvo, it doesn't really matter where it hits, it completely disables everything. It's much easier to hit all the different weapons. You don't even have to aim, you just need to hit the hole.
Right.
Yeah, same with a lumberjack heavy mortar, which deals flechette damage to pop balloons. With burst rounds, that thing gets such a large damage radius that you can hit the underside of the hull of an enemy ship, and it will still kill the balloon on top of the ship.
Right.
Yeah, so, but it doesn't give you any extra damage, it just makes it easier to hit for the AoE radius. Okay? Now, greased rounds. Next one. Greased rounds are brilliant for some weapons, gives you a 60% higher rate of fire, which is insane, but it also reduces your range. This is the big thing. Minus 20% damage, minus 20% projectile speed, for massively increased rate of fire. This is actually the highest damaging ammunition for the Gatling. It is also very, very good, very high DPS stuff for the light flak and the mortar, for example. So some weapons, also the Banshee rocket carousel, really shine with these grease rounds. It's also brilliant up close with a flamer, because the flamer basically fires faster, so you set the enemy, you give them more fire stacks in the same amount of time, right? Also, I would never use incendiary rounds in the flamer. For example, I've seen many newbies put incendiary rounds in the flamer because it's like, it must be better because it's also fire. But actually, your range will suck and your rate of fire barely offsets the extra fire chance. So incendiary rounds in a flamer is an absolute no-go. Next rounds, the Lesmog rounds. Lesmog rounds are the absolute long-range rounds that you can get. It basically, you see 70% projectile speed. Yeah, it has a massively reduced clip size, so you will need to reload a lot more often, and this hits your DPS quite hard, harder than you'd expect. But if you need extra range, you want Lesmog rounds. Lesmog rounds are absolutely brilliant in the flamer. The Gatling also benefits greatly. The Gatling basically goes from 450 meters to 765 meters range. So you can fire at enemies that are so far away. It's absolutely insane. It also makes many arcing weapons like mortars and such a lot easier to hit with because it has additional projectile lift. They don't drop as far, but again you will deal less damage. So if you're a bad shot, you can use less more rounds, or if you're out of range, you can use less more rounds. Yeah. But in even if you're a good shot, the extra range is pretty much it's a must-have for every gunner. Yeah. Except for things like if you use the Watcher actually has pretty good range. Same with the Banshee rockets. But the accuracy is so bad that the range doesn't matter, the accuracy matters, so you will get more long-range capabilities out of using the heavy clip to be able to actually aim at the enemy at long range instead of using the Lesmo rounds.
Right.
Okay, so then you have the heatsink clip. Heatsink clip is pretty straightforward. Whenever you have the heatsink clip completely loaded, if it's already inside the gun, it cannot be set on fire anymore. And if you reload it, if it finishes reloading with heatsink clip inside, then it will extinguish 3 fire stacks. but not everything at once. So if your gun has like 5 fire stacks, you put heatsink on, you get reduced to 2, and with the next reload it will be gone. So this is a hard counter against flamers and such. Can just keep firing, and they usually don't like that. If you know you're going up against many flamers, you can also have your gunner run around, or your engineer takes heatsink clip and preloads every single weapon on the ship with heatsink, so they cannot be set on fire anymore, unless you change the ammunition. Yeah?
Yeah.
It's not a bad ammo type at all. It also has, with plus 30% clip size, it has the largest clip of every weapon in the game, every ammo type in the game. Okay, then you have the charged rounds, last one. It's basically extra damage, but it's not all that nice because that extra damage comes with reduced clip size and reduced rate of fire. So for things like the Gatling, you actually lose some DPS. So the grease rounds would actually do more damage on a Gatling than the charged rounds. Now there are some weapons that benefit greatly from the charged rounds, especially those that have less ammo in them. For example, the Mercury Field Gun. Mercury Field Gun only has 2 shots, but since it's minus 20% clip size and not minus 25% clip size, it gets rounded. You still retain both your shots, so you don't lose a single round, and you still get to deal 30% extra damage per hit.
So basically,
So no downsides, only extra damage.
So I think the ammunition is dependent upon the weapon as well as the situation and what it can be perfect for.
Exactly. So many weapons have one ideal ammunition. Things like, for example, the light flag almost exclusively thrives on burst ammunition. Banshee should only use greased rounds. Flamer, by far the best choice for the flamer is usually less smog because range is a big issue, much bigger issue than setting something on fire. And some weapons benefit from having multiple ammo, and these are usually reserved for the gunner. Like I mentioned, for example, with the heavy flak and the arming time, if you put a gunner on a heavy weapon that has minimum range, you want your gunner to use one ammo type with low projectile speed, say incendiary, and then medium, for example burst, and then long range with a less smog. So you actually have ammo to change the range of your weapon to what you're currently engaging at.
Right.
Yeah, that's something an engineer simply can't do because he can only carry one single ammo type.
Yeah. So it's pretty dependent upon the main gunner.
Yeah, but again, don't actually dismiss default ammo because default ammo is not bad at all. Every single ammo type comes with a drawback.
Yeah. So the
And
noble.
default is pretty damn solid for the Gatling, for example. Almost every single ammo type except greased rounds actually drops you a little bit of DPS.
Right.
Alright, and I already see your gunner actually has a fire extinguisher instead of a pipe wrench. It's usually a bad idea. If your gunner needs to deal with fire, gunner should always take care of his guns and his guns alone. If your gunner runs off to repair parts of the ship, he's not doing his job. The reason for that is ammo is infinite. Like, you never run out of ammo. So if all of your crew is running around the ship fixing stuff and you're still being shot at, they will not stop shooting. They will just continue shooting until you're dead. So what you need to do is to have at least one guy, which is usually a gunner, fire back and retaliate in order to persuade them to break off the attack. Because if they have 2 or 3 guys shooting at you, manning all the guns, then there's no one repairing them. So if you can fire back with at least one gun, you can force them to at least ease off a little bit.
And you can disrupt them trying to take, precision shots sort of thing.
Yes, exactly. So gunner should always care about his guns only, first and foremost, until, well, let's say an enemy is right behind you in the goldfish. You don't have any weapon in the bag. In that case, it's okay. It's common sense. Okay, your gunner can leave the front gun and help a little bit with repairs. Yeah, but generally you don't want to have your gunner run around. And if your gunner is concerned about fire, then he should bring heatsink ammunition. A gunner should always have a pipe wrench.
Right.
Alright, anything else I can help you with?
I think first we need to kind of dissolve this information, because it's quite a lot.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're going to have another game or two soon and see if we can apply it. And then if there's anything else, we can ask you and give us a hand.
So for ships, I would actually suggest stick to the goldfish, stick to what you know. Just with that little bit extra information I just gave you. Ships you should stay away from, in my opinion, especially if you don't have 4 guys, stay away from the Mobula.
We should have 4 guys
because you need a full...
but one of them wasn't available.
Okay, because Mobula is extremely bad with AI crew members. You need a full crew to man them. Don't try to do that solo or with 2 or 3 people. It doesn't work. What else? Galleon is a newbie trap. It looks impressive, but like I said, it has glaring weaknesses. Galleon is brilliant as long as nothing shoots at it, but if someone shoots at it, it makes a huge target. So it's usually very frustrating to play in a Galleon unless you know really what you're doing. Goldfish, again, is the worst solo ship in the game, but is a brilliant team ship. And all the other ships should be relatively easy and fair to use. Yeah? Spire is an exceptional weapons platform, but again makes a big target. Junker is very easy, very forgiving, has good broadside, and can fire in all directions. Junker is actually something I would recommend to many newbies. Pyramidion
is my next option, maybe to go for a Junker instead.
Yeah, Pyramidion is very straightforward. Can't really go wrong with a Pyramidion. I mean, you have 2 weapons in the front. For some people, that's actually a lot easier, having 2 weapons in the front, not 3 weapons, because that forces one of your crew members to actually run around and focus on repairs, which is in the beginning is pretty good.
Just be 1 second.
And
oh, sorry about that.
Right, then the last one is the squid. The squid can be very bad or actually very capable. It's the fastest, the most nimble ship. And it only has 1 light weapon front, 1 on the side and 1 on the back. But yeah, there's one thing that I still need to talk about: weapon arcs. Yeah, but the layout on the squid actually gives you the opportunity in your diagonal to have overlapping weapon arcs, so you can fire two weapons at the enemy. It's still very good. Weapon arcs. Weapon arcs is one thing that many pilots have no clue about when they start the game. And weapon arcs can also make or break a good ship. For best example, the Mercury field gun. The Mercury field gun is something like a sniper cannon. I think you have it on one of the Junker presets. And it fires at extreme range, it does piercing damage, so it's good for breaking armor. It is actually accurate enough to take aim shots at over 1 kilometer at enemy engines and weapons to take them out. But the big downside to the Mercury field gun is it can only turn 15 degrees, so almost nothing at all.
Yeah.
Compare that to
Not how
Gatling.
to-
Yeah, the Gatling can turn like 60 degrees. I think the widest turning weapon, proper weapon, is the Artemis rocket launcher that the Junker has on the front. Yeah, the Artemis can turn 65 degrees to the side, which also makes it a very good choice for the front weapon slot in a Junker, because you can still engage targets diagonally on the side and still use your broadside weapons if you fly just correctly. If you put a more narrow weapon, like for example the Hades cannon, which only does I think 40 or 50 degrees, you don't really have an overlap. Yeah, so that doesn't work.
You have blind spots, basically.
Yeah, you have blind spots. So weapon arcs are also very important, depending on which ship you use and where you put it. The Spire with the layout, or let's put it like this with the Mobula. The Mobula I'm flying currently, you see it, has 5 weapon slots in the front. Now all of these look like they fire forward. They actually don't. The only weapon slot on the Junker, the Mobula, that fires straight forward is the number 3 on top of the pilot's cabin. And the ones on the side, the 1 and 4 on the right side and the 2 and 5 on the left side, they are slightly diagonal. And for that same reason, I've seen people try to do a sniper Mobula, and they put the Mercuries on the number 4 and the number 5 slot. And it actually gives them diagonal fire arcs, but they can't actually hit something that is right in front of them. Impossible. So this is a good example of how some weapons can make or break a loadout. If I want to have a sniper Mobula, I would put the Mercury field gun in the number 3, and then put wide-angle explosive weapons like Banshees, Artemis, or Light Flux on the number 1 and 2 slots.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you have something with a narrow arc like the Mercury field gun, or for example, the Lumberjack heavy mortar can turn up and down very, very well, but almost nothing to the side. So when you have a weapon like that, the gunner needs to tell the pilot constantly how he needs to fly, so the pilot needs to listen to the gunner exclusively.
Right.
Yeah? You can actually see these weapon arcs. Are you familiar with the manual?
No.
Yeah. Okay, the manual in the upper right side, there's a small book icon next to the help icon. If you click on that, don't actually click on the game manual. There are other books in there. The game manual was redone in one of the last few updates. It brings you to a link outside of the game to a website, so don't click on the game manual. It will tell you mostly what I've been telling you. But you have Wilson's notes, Losses Travels, Evadner's reports. I think Losses Travels is detailed information about maps. Ivatnes Reports is about ships, and Wilson's Notes 1 is about light weapons, Volume 2 is about heavy weapons. Now, if you click on Wilson's Notes number 1, you will see all the different weapons listed. Most of them, as a beginner, will be grayed out, I think. And these will actually unlock if you yourself use these weapons and hit enemies with it. Some need like 10 hits on an enemy target, some need like 60 hits, and once you have that, you will get detailed information about what this weapon is actually capable of, firing arcs and so on. Just click on something you have unlocked, and you will see.
Yeah, it gives all the arcs, vertical, horizontal, things like that.
Yep. And this is a very good reference to check out if something would work or not, or for figuring out weaknesses. For example, if you have the Artemis unlocked, the Artemis has a very wide arc to the side, like I mentioned, but it actually only turns like 10 or 15 degrees upwards. So if you know an enemy has lots of these Artemis rockets installed, Junkers are notorious for that, you just need to fly higher than them and just rain all your warheads down on their deck, and they will never be able to fire back. So intimate knowledge of guns really pays off in this game.
Right. I think we're going to go
Yeah,
have a look
you
through
can.
these.
I think you can see the unlocks if you're in the upper left corner. The progress button, I think you already used that for grabbing some rewards and so on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. If you go in progress, then you select achievements, and there should be one track in the drop-down menu which is lore and statues.
Oh yeah, and you got the 3 different books, what you can unlock.
Yeah. There's all the stuff that you can unlock, so you can click on it, you see exactly what you need to do and how to unlock more information.
Right.
Alright, that's it basically. I can just tell you, just fly around a bit, have fun, and if you're flying with random people, get used to using the actual voice chat in game, because it's used almost exclusively also by higher level people and by many veterans. The in-game voice in this game is pretty damn well done. You've got several different channels. You can speak to your crew exclusively. You have a party chat if you make a social party or a clan. As a pilot, you have a direct voice communication to all the other pilots on your team while you are in game, and so on. So it is very, very useful.
So you could actually talk to the pilot.
Yeah, you can talk to other pilots. You have usually you have two different voice buttons. You have X and you have C. Also shows in the lower left corner for the voice chat. How is it? With X, you broadcast to everyone, like what I'm doing right now. If you're inside a gaming lobby, if you press X, the enemy team will also hear you. If you use C, then only your own team will hear you, but the whole team, not only your ship. And if you're in-game, pressing C will talk to your crew, your whole ship. And if you are the pilot, and only the pilot, can use C to talk to the other pilots that are on your team. So you can actually discuss maneuvers or focus fire targets.
Oh, I didn't know that. That'd be helpful.
And there's another thing that you can do. is you have the option to invite people to crew, which is what you have here for the matchmaking and so on. You can also invite people to a party. And not that many people use that because party is only for social reasons. If you open your social tab, you see that you have friends, party, clan, recent, blah blah blah. And if you invite people to a party, there's actually an additional voice chat button that talks exclusively to the party. So you can sit in, you could be sitting in different ships and still talk to all your friends, for
Right.
example.
So you can
Yeah.
have, yeah.
So the voice chat, yeah, the voice chat in this game is very well done.
Well, I think we're going to have to head. Thank you so much for all the help and all the advice. We're going to, next time we obviously play, we're going to try and put this into practice and concentrate on instead of like randomly firing. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah,
all your help.
don't worry about it. There's even more, but I need to stop ranting. I need to grab myself a beer and just sit back, and
I think we need to
you
learn
should
this
just
bit first.
play a few games and enjoy. But with that knowledge, you're already several steps ahead of all the other novices. Because if you the simple thing is what I don't get, what the game doesn't really make a good job of telling you is the combination of piercing and explosive damage to break armor and then shred the hull to get a kill. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't really explain you everywhere, and that's the most important thing for killing.
But yeah, thank you so much again. I'm gonna have to head, but that's amazing information. We'll learn how to do it properly for next time.
Right, enjoy.
All right, thank you again.
Bye.